Welcome back to another episode of Property Now. Sav, I cried. I nearly cried.
Yeah,
we got really emotional in this one.
It was amazing. Such a powerful story. Great couple. I'm just wowed. I'm still wowed.
We're still we're on a high. We're on a high recording this intro.
Yes.
First home buyer guide, the first home buyer playbook. We had Will and Naomi O'Toole, young married couple, 24 and 22. Mate, how some of the things they've achieved via property, incredible story. We unpack first home buyer grants and opportunities. We unpack off the plan and existing property.
Stereotypes, tips and tricks.
Yeah, stereotypes.
Spreadsheets.
So much. If any aspiring first home buyers or even like young couples or young people are out there, watch this one. If you get half the tips out of this that they gave, incredible. Sav, thanks for joining me.
No, this was wonderful.
I'm Michael Carboni. My friends call me Carbs, and welcome to another episode of Property Now. Sav brought an opportunity to get Will on the podcast because I really wanted to talk about like first home buyer strategies. And she says, Will, he bought with Coposit at Sovereign Park in Newcastle. Such a good speaker, such a good guy. He's an accountant. He'll have all, and you know.
An accountant who's a good speaker.
Who's a good speaker.
So rare. Very well.
No, I'm sure there's plenty of those. Sorry to all the accountants watching that. Yeah, you're all great speakers. But I thought it was a good story too, and I can't wait to unpack that story. But then you said, and I'd love to talk about how I helped my now wife, Naomi, buy her first property. And I'm like, well, get Naomi here as well.
I'm honoured to be here.
We don't want it to, this is, as people know who watch this, you know, we're trying to help our potential Coposit buyers get into property, get into the market, but they don't necessarily have to use Coposit, right? We're trying to help people on their pathway. So we've got one Coposit buyer, one non-Coposit buyer, very happy couple. And I can't wait to unpack some of this.
Yeah, very excited.
So who's I find with most couples, and Sav, you tell me if you agree or not, there's like an instigator or a driver, you know what I mean? There's always one that's sort of saying, we need to, this is the goal, like, let's get there. Who is it out of you two?
Financially, absolutely Will. Being an accountant, I'm very happy to pass that role to him.
Yeah, and look, every time we make a decision, I put it into a spreadsheet.
And we have sit down quarterly reviews where we kind of go through it all together. He explains how we're budgeting.
You're making it sound a lot more official than it really is. It's like just over dinner one time.
Good.
Yeah, it's helpful. As someone who didn't have much financial literacy before meeting Will, I've definitely learned a lot from that.
Yeah, and being an accountant, I mean, it didn't teach me a lot about property, but it gave me a lot of like fundamental understandings about loans and interest and insurance and fees and just a good ground base to then ask the right questions, I think.
So did you have an interest in property before meeting Naomi?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I was always wanting to get into investment. I was looking at stocks and trading options for a bit, but I realised that property, there's just so many benefits and incentives and opportunities for a young person. I should be maximising them while we can.
Like what?
Like the first home buyers initiatives. Yeah. There's that was probably the biggest thing. Just being able to borrow money at such a large extent to get such a solid investment and the security in that. That's what we were after.
A lot of people tell a similar story. Like there's nothing, I mean, I invest in shares as well. I own property, but you know, you can certainly leverage the property side more just because of the way incentives and the way it works here in Australia. And you know a lot of these things as an accountant. Yep. But you can actually borrow someone else's money, pay it back over time, and hopefully make some equity.
Yeah, of course. And there is risk to that, obviously. But there's risk and reward, so you got to weigh those things up.
Yeah, it's a long-term game.
How old were you when you started thinking this way?
So I was probably 19. I got my first full-time job as an accountant when I was 18. And then about a year after working, I thought, what can I be doing? So I started looking at places in Newcastle, looking at townhouses and apartments because that's all I could really afford at the time with my borrowing capacity limitations, which I'm excited to talk about later.
Where did you look to for, like, because 19 is quite young. Did you, obviously, I wish I was 19 again, Will.
Yeah.
Where did you have a mentor? Where did you get your advice from, or how did you learn? this
Yeah,
stuff?
my dad was very helpful. So he's not an accountant, he's an architect actually, other side of the brain.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, he was getting investment properties and really wanting to. I was really interested in his process in doing that, so I was asking him a lot of questions.
And
then
your
also,
mum actually manages investment properties for him, so they do their own. They're very into property.
yeah,
Fantastic. We
They're
should get
very
your mum and dad on the podcast.
well, yeah. He when he saw Sovereign Park, he was like, "That's a really good thing to get into," and so when that came up, I was like, "I think this is the thing for me." It seems like a blue chip property and it's got a future. It's not going anywhere, and I was really excited to buy off the plan, but the biggest barrier for me was just putting up that 10%, which I'd worked so hard for, saving for years, and just not going to see the benefit of that to come for potentially 3-4 years while the property was being built.
So lots to unpack. You found Sovereign Park.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you find it? Realestate.com, through the agent? Like, how did you find it?
I found it just on realestate.com.
Yeah.
Just scrolling properties. It came up as a off the plan development.
And you said it was like you were attracted to this particular project. What were the things that attracted you to it? You said it was like solid. It was definitely going to be built. Like, good developer.
Yeah, I mean, I love Newcastle.
Yep.
I think Newcastle's a great city. And then also what I really liked about it was the property backs onto this reserve, this bush.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of reserve left in Newcastle. And so I really liked the idea of being like looking out onto the bush, but then also being walking distance to the beaches and the city and Derby Street. All the main things in the city. I just thought it was a great balance of a lot of things.
Us Sydney people don't realise, because we think of Newcastle as like a country town.
I love Newcastle.
It's actually a city.
It's
I
so
go to
nice.
a couple of times a year.
And you've nailed it. Like
Yeah.
the proximity to the beach and the country,
Yes.
but it's a city.
Yeah.
It's actually
And you got wineries not too far away.
Yeah.
you're selling it.
Yes, that's right.
Selling the dream.
Absolutely.
So what happened next? You walk into you contact the agent.
Yeah, talking to the agent, and I was just really nervous about seeing my 10% disappear before my eyes.
So you had saved full 10%.
I had saved the full 10%.
Yep.
Which is, I worked really hard to save the 10%, working all through school and then having worked full time for a bit. But I just thought there was too much I wanted to do with that money that I'd saved, and I was really nervous about putting it all into a deposit that I wasn't going to see for a long time. So when Coposit came up as an option, that completely changed the way I viewed it. I saw it as something I can pay off over time, and instead of digging into my savings, I just budgeted it into my weekly income and expenses. And so I was able to essentially keep my deposit and just pay the 10% over time. And then
So good.
Love that. I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I remember meeting you in the display suites and having a conversation. And it's just powerful how it's worked out.
I actually
Yeah.
remember as well, Sav,
Yeah.
and because you came up to me and you're like, "Oh, this guy Will, he's like a kid. He's like 20, and he's got the full 10%, but he wasn't going to buy unless he could do it this
which
way."
is just, it's just so good to hear.
well, the thing is, I had other plans with my money as well. Like I
What were the
needed
plans?
to buy a ring for her and pay for a honeymoon and.
Yeah, I wasn't asking for these.
But
So you're able to buy the ring and the honeymoon anyway. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So you had already met.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'd met.
This was in the first year I moved down, and yeah, I remember actually, this is a bit of a funny story, when he wanted to surprise me with this like idea of buying an apartment in Newcastle, and he took me up to this beautiful lookout in Newcastle, and I thought he was going to pop the question after a few months of being down, and I kind of like was freaking out, but then he was like, I think I'm going to buy an apartment. I was like, okay, okay, good. But no, very exciting moment.
Yeah.
That's a good strategy. When I proposed to my wife, that she knew it was coming. So the month leading up to it, I did a lot of romantic things, but didn't ask.
Red herrings.
Just some red herrings. It was good.
Throw her off.
How did you? So Naomi,
Yeah.
just moved down from Brizzy. You're committing to this dude, this young dude, your mate's younger brother. Was property something, like when he said, I'm going to buy property here, how did you feel?
Honestly, my initial reaction was pretty scared because I see that as a huge commitment. It is a huge commitment. And to me, that was, I saw it as, I think a lot of people do see it this way, of being tied down to one place and limiting future travel and freedom opportunities. I guess that's what I valued at the time. I really wanted to work overseas, and I still do. But yeah, Will was kind of chatting me through how buying off the settlement where you're not locked in for a certain amount of time, or you're locked in, but you're not needing to pay certain costs until a later point in time. And he just talked me through it, and it really did ease some of my anxiety around it, and not seeing it as you're being locked in, seeing it as it's actually enabling freedom further down the track.
Well, you've probably already seen, well, you haven't valued the property yet, it's still being built, but you've probably seen some growth in the area since you put that money down, is that right?
Yeah, certainly. And you see, occasionally, very rarely, you see one of the apartments come up as available again, like someone's backed out of their purchase, and it becomes available, and it's on for much more than it was.
That must feel good.
2023.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is feeling good. And it feels good essentially holding an asset that we're not paying interest on, or, and we're getting the growth out of it without paying the cost.
It does feel nice knowing that's in our future.
It's part of the risk too, right? Because I always I think some people look at off the plan, and I look at this too. I go, well, I'd love to have some rental income coming, but it's obviously not coming because it doesn't exist yet. But balancing that out with, hey, you're able to get in at what is likely to be, if you do your research right and you buy in the right place, which it sounds like you have, you're going to see some growth.
Yeah.
Before a brick has been laid.
Yeah, and the way I thought about it was, if these apartments were built right now, and they were being offered to me, but I got to pay the price they were 4 years ago, would I just jump at that opportunity? Of course. And so if I exchange today, in 4 years' time, I'm going to be so thankful that I locked in that price 4 years ago.
So what's the project and who's the developer? We need to shout them out.
So the project is Sovereign Park, and the developer is Stronic.
Yeah.
And they just started construction with Mars, and it's looking to be.
We'll clip it, PJ. That's an ad for Stronic. Stronic, they've been around for over 100 years in New as well. So good track
they did
record.
the Civic Theatre, I understand, and also Merriweather Surf House.
Yeah. So Naomi, you've come down, you're like, okay, this guy, he's smart, he owns property, he's buying me a massive ring. I've hit the jackpot.
I didn't know that. Yes.
So at what point did you start to go, okay, property's kind of interesting?
Yeah. I think when we started talking about how it can enable the future freedoms, and I definitely had a vision of what I wanted my future home to look like, but I didn't know at that point in time the steps to get there. And so, when we started having that conversation around the steps and breaking down the property journey and how you can get into the market and then build from there, I think that's when I really got interested. And at that point in time, I was working full time as well, and had my own income that I could look at my own borrowing capacity. So I did start doing a bit of my own research from that conversation. Yeah.
Where did your research take you?
I think for me, off the bat, I was kind of looking at, my two options were looking at units in town and then houses with backyards further out of town. And so I was kind of thinking about what I wanted. Was it a home to live in, a home to rent out, and what did I want to sacrifice? Did I want to sacrifice the backyard, or did I want to sacrifice location? Like, all these kind of thoughts were running through my head, but I knew that at this point in time I did want to get into the property market, especially to use my first homeowners, knowing that down the track Will and I would be getting married, moving in together, losing my first homeowners. I wanted to make the most of that time.
How old are you guys? Because there's too much wisdom coming out of this conversation.
Well, I'm 24.
And I'm 22.
You guys are going to be unstoppable when you're my age, which I won't say how old that is. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so what did you end up going for?
So I'm a big backyard girl. I've started my own veggie patch, so that was my priority. And I think I was thinking about this after Will had already bought this apartment off a plan. So we knew we were going to have a good investment property in our future. So we were definitely looking at a house we could live in, settle, put some roots down for the next few years. And so for that reason, we chose to move further out of town, looking at homes within my budget, an hour away, that had a little bit of a backyard and more of that house style rather than the unit style. That was just my preference.
Massive hack, which I wish I did, or my wife and I did, was you bought in your own name.
Yes.
So you were both able to use first home buyer grants on each of your properties, which is huge. Yeah. Talk us through that.
Well, I didn't realise that was the case. I didn't realise that you lost your first homeowners when you were de facto or married. And when I realised that, I just immediately wanted to take advantage of it while I was there.
Yep.
Yeah, and so we knew that I had used mine, and so like buying a house together, we knew it needed to be in Naomi's name, completely under Naomi's income, which was the biggest limit being our borrowing power. So yeah, we did have to cut down our expectations of what would be. We couldn't have all the factors that we were looking for in a house. But yeah, using both first home buyers benefits, it's such a valuable opportunity. And unfortunately, couples that realise that that's something they can do, it's almost a bit late because you may have combined bank accounts already, or
well, that was my wife and I. So I had used first home. I had used the grant a long time ago, and when we purchased together, it was too late. Like we had combined, we were getting married. It was too late.
And I feel like, and I definitely feel like as a woman, and I did listen to your Women in the Property Market podcast, and I really loved that. I did feel like by the time I started thinking about it and having a bit of education around it, I can see how for most couples it would be too late. I think, unfortunately, that it's just a bit more in the male brain earlier on in life because of culture.
Conversations, exactly.
It's not I don't mean to gender stereotype, but we see it with Coposit Street. Like we had a bunch of interviews. It was very prevalent in a series of interviews we did on the Gold Coast, actually, where we're speaking to a lot of young, like your age men and women, and the guys were kind of like, yeah, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to invest, and I'm going to do this and that. Yeah. And the girls were like, oh yeah, I'm saving up because eventually I want to have kids and I'm going to have to take time off work. Very different mindsets.
Yeah, both future planning.
For different reasons.
And so I guess thinking about first homeowners, I think it's so important for women to be thinking about that before they meet anyone who's having that conversation with them as well. And it's something I definitely want to talk more about with my friends before they are in a de facto or married relationship. You know what I mean?
Do your friends talk about this sort of stuff?
Personally, no.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends do, but
this could be it could again be it's not a gender stereotype. Like I think a lot of guys, like I remember talking to my mates about stuff like this really early. My group of friends and I, when we were like 18, were like, let's all put in some money and buy a big farm out in New South Wales. Yeah. And I wish we did. Right? But we were thinking about stuff like that early. Whereas, again, I talked to my wife and she's like, no, we never really spoke about that. It wasn't until later on. Yeah. So I think it's important that you need to advocate
having conversations
this with your friends.
So important.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm trying to get all my friends now to buy property. And most of them are slightly older than me, so
it's also your job to.
Yeah, no, but I feel so passionate about it now. I bought a property probably about a month ago.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. But that was a bit of a journey, not through Coposit because I needed to live in it straight away. But a lot of my friends are still like trying to figure out what they should be doing, and the same, like if they're in a relationship that. The grants won't be they won't be eligible for certain grants. You know, having a certain income, like all of these things matter.
100%.
I think that's a huge thing. A lot of people do a lot of soul searching in their early stages of that period where you're looking to tap into the market, and we're very fortunate that we were able to find each other and find our career directions quite early on, and that gave us, I guess, a little bit of a head start because we were able to get into the full-time working space earlier, and now that we had the direction, that helped us a lot.
But you're not looking for the big mansion from the get-go. You've gone, okay, I want to get an investment. I want something that's going to make me money. Naomi, you've said, I want somewhere to live.
Yeah.
Now, that's not going to be the best house immediately. Yeah. So where do we go? What does that look like? Knowing that, I assume that eventually you might sell that principal place of residence and buy something a bit bigger, a bit closer to town or whatever. But so I assume this comes from your quarterly spreadsheet dates, because I don't know how two people like yourselves would even start thinking that way. Like, is it like take me to these spreadsheet dates, because I'm very intrigued at what they look like and how the conversation goes. Because the minute, again, I keep bringing this back to my relationship. Sorry, Tina, I love you, babe. But we'll sit down and have a spreadsheet date, and it becomes very fiery. Like, why did you buy this on the credit card?
It's hard. It's hard.
So like,
I enjoy nice things. It is hard, but I think it's important to have those conversations openly, because I think for me, I had goals, but I didn't realize the financial aspect to them, and so I think it's more realizing, okay, if this is our goal, how can we get there, and what does that look like now? What are the steps that we need to take? And everyone has different goals. So
well, I just I've always seen this aspect of my life as like a bit of a game, and like I really want to get good at playing the game. And so there's things I can do. I can practice. I can get other people to help me, like teach me how to play this part of the game. And it's just, what can I do to get ahead in this part of my life? And I'm very fortunate that I found myself in a finance role. I never wanted to be an accountant, actually. I just kind of found myself.
It was so funny when we were first dating. He was still in the phase where people would ask him what he does for work, and he'd be like, I work in finance. He didn't want to say it, but you're like, you're proud of it.
No, I'm proud of it now, and it's taught me a lot. And I can forecast really well. So I've built like a Excel file that pretty much forecasts what our bank balance is going to be in the next 6 months.
Well, it's especially important with the travel we're doing. I was more just like, is this even feasible? Do I need to live within my means? Is this, will it work? And so you looked at our income, you looked at what we're spending and what we'll need to, and basically just forecast whether it was going to be a possibility.
I was just at that point, I was just scenario testing. I was like, if we get this house, we'll have this much to travel with in 6 months' time. If we want to do this much travel, we can only afford this house. And there was a big period where I spent a lot of time thinking about all that stuff, and eventually we started making decisions, and making the right decisions makes it easier to make decisions down the track because you're juggling less.
I might ask you for a clean sheet of that Excel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I try and do similar. I'm learning so much from this kid. I feel so like, anyway. Yeah. I do the same thing, but I'm always looking back.
Yeah.
But whereas you got to sort of look forward as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you can look back and you can learn a lot from the past, but at the end of the day, you can't change the past. So you got to be forecasting, and if your forecast isn't reaching where you want to be, you got to decide what you're going to change.
So the good news is you've done these things, and now you're 22 and 24, and you've achieved those goals. You bought your investment property, you bought your principal place for residence. You're both doing it together. What's the next goals?
The next goal is travel, which that was a huge thing when Naomi and I got married. She said, I'd really love to go and do some volunteering overseas in a third world country.
May have made it an ultimatum.
She's like, now that you signed the papers,
Will's on one knee, and you're like, well.
Just as long as you know.
Before you get up.
Yeah. But my first response was, I've got to work out if this is possible.
Yeah. Which is a good...
That's a perfect response.
It's what I need. It's what I need.
Because, I'm keen to travel, and I'm keen to, take some time off work and really give to people who need it more. But I needed to work out if that was even feasible for us. And so, we did a lot of crunching the numbers, and we worked out how much we needed to save, and thought about renting out the property, selling our cars, that we're not going to need while we're away. Just all the things, looking at online jobs that we could potentially do while we're over there. And so, yeah, we've found a way to make it possible. So we're travelling to Tanzania in July and doing 6 months over there.
That's hectic.
That's, yeah. What would you say is the biggest, like, cut that you had to make? Like, was there a massive change in lifestyle that you had to facilitate to do it?
I think in terms of saving, like, we really have made a big effort not to buy unnecessary things. For me, it was like lunches. I like buying it was something as small
lunch
as
adds
that.
up, doesn't it?
It does add up.
Yeah.
Coffees and
So
lunch.
I have tried to cut that, and I have cut it. I still treat myself sometimes, but all those little costs and shopping, like the clothes, trying to use what you have rather than get new things.
Just to clarify, you're making lunch at home. You're not eating lunch. Okay, just checking.
It's a bit of meal prep.
Still
bit of
eat,
meal
guys.
prep.
Food is still important.
We'll survive until dinner.
Yes.
No, it's not like that.
But yeah, I think also just looking at, you always say you can look at money like what you're earning, and then you can look at what you're spending. And if you want more money, you can work on both sides of that. So we've tried to work on both sides of it, and that also
Like little
looks
side
like
hustles to get
I
more.
love it. So how do I get more? How do I spend less?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as long as that's a big thing this is where your spreadsheets will help. You will see every week or every month or every quarter what that surplus is, right?
Yeah.
And people don't see that. They're just like paycheck to paycheck, and it's so
absolutely.
hard. So yeah, how much more can I earn? How much less can I spend?
And saving, like spending less is more important than people think.
Yep.
Because you can get a side hustle that
Yep.
can get you an extra lump of cash every week, but you got to pay tax on that
Yep.
extra income. Whereas if you're saving money and you can save that amount of money that you would be earning from the side hustle, that's just money that you get to keep in your pocket.
But what people do as well, Will, is as soon as they're earning a bit more, they start spending a bit more. So lifestyle creep happens.
Yeah, for sure.
You go, I just got a pay rise. All right, well, let's
Upgrade the phone,
let's get
upgrade
a
the
new
car.
car.
Yeah.
Let's, so people do that. So I think the best thing you can do is say you get that pay rise, live the same.
Yeah.
If you can, for a bit,
Yeah.
Constantly look
I'm
for
not saying
places to
don't
stay.
treat yourself,
Yeah.
No, of course not.
but I think like give yourself a bit of a buffer period before you start like increasing your lifestyle as well.
And I'd actually say I've definitely reduced my spending even though I've got a pay rise. Like I kind of went the other way with that awareness of it. So yeah, we've been saving hard to go overseas, but we're super thankful it's even an opportunity.
Yeah. Another thing is, like, we're not locking ourselves down in our house and cutting out all the expenses. We've still actually kept quite busy, being able to go places on weekends and stuff like that. But what we've decided to do instead of going and paying for a nice Airbnb or paying for a hotel or staying somewhere nice, we're staying with like extended relatives or old friends.
Not using people.
Not using people, but like
visiting.
it's nice to
Visiting,
catch up with people, and
Yeah.
we've got a lot of generous and hospitable people in our lives, and it's nice to spend the weekend with them.
It is.
And we're
You got that
still,
great uncle down in Melbourne. Visit him.
Yeah,
Oh, Will's called again. I think he needs a place to stay.
but and then we also do a lot of camping, which is
Yeah.
cheaper travel. Like staying in national parks.
Yeah.
So
$6 a night.
Well, it's
$6
worthwhile when you're in
Pretty good.
Tanzania for 6 months.
Exactly.
Like, that's incredible.
if that's what you're forgoing.
So you've obviously got a lot of good family and friends around, and I just wonder, one thing you mentioned, Naomi, is you had to move out a little bit further than you may have wanted to. How's that? Because do you have family and friends in Singleton? where you live?
No.
No.
We have one couple.
Yeah,
who
we've
are-
made friends.
You're
We've
making
made
friends now, yeah?
I think this is an interesting conversation. So when
you.
I first thought about property, my parents, who I love dearly, they've lived in the same house since they got married, and they're still there, and they're going to retire there. Like,
It's a beautiful property.
my expectations coming into property were like very different to how they are now.
Like you buy your forever home.
Yes. And obviously the market's changed so much since they bought. So a big part for me was adjusting my expectations of where I was going to live and saying, okay, my first home can look different to how I thought, where I want to raise my kids, for example, you know. And moving out regionally just made sense. I think if you're willing to travel a little bit for work, obviously everyone's got different priorities, but we just felt like it made sense for us. And I also just love supporting like rural regional Australia. I think it's important. And it's funny, like, there's lots of like jobs that don't get as much pay, unfortunately, like nursing, teaching. But rurally and regionally, those jobs are needed as well. So like being open and flexible, if it works for you to move out to those places, I think is a really good move, and you're supporting a good thing as well.
Especially while you're at your stage of the journey, your age in the journey. Because once the kids come, again, it's a different story.
Yeah, you have different priorities.
You're looking for schools, and once they're in school, you're kind of tied down to an area. Yeah. But I think you guys are putting yourself in a position where when eventually maybe you're blessed with children, you can step up to I'm not going to say forever home, because I don't think that's the thing anymore. I think people are happy to move around. Younger generations are more likely to want to move around as well, but you'll have something where you kids can enjoy it,
and give them a home and a place to become nostalgic when they're older. But it's I also think the stage of life we're newly married and then moving out into a town that we don't really have any connections, it was really lovely feeling like we were starting a new life together. And all the people we met, they didn't know us as Will and Naomi who got married, they just knew us as a married couple. And the way they talk to us and the way we interact with them, it's it felt like we were a unit.
I'm gonna cry over here. I can't believe how positive. Like, I'm gonna turn around, Sav, so I don't cry. Everything, like, what I love is everything you guys have done. How do I say this? A lot of people look at big challenges, because that's a big challenge. Moving away is a big challenge. Yeah. People look at it as like, oh, this is terrible. Why do we have to do this? I can't believe this is our best option. You guys went, hey, this is starting a new life. This is the first step on the ladder. We're going to meet new people. Like, I love this positivity, man. It's going better than I expected.
You seem to be doing it together as well. Like, it's a you're a unit together. That's really beautiful to see. So.
Take me back to, we touched on first home buyer grants. And I think you can touch on it, but let's go into some detail, because a lot of people know they're out there, but they don't know. Like, for example, could you access it straight away with an off-the-plan property, Will? And Naomi, how did you ask for it, or who do you ask for it, or what are the steps in getting it? Because I think everyone knows they exist, but people don't know, what do you do?
Yeah, who's eligible? Yes. How did they apply? Yeah, particularly with the off-the-plan property, I had no idea. And there was a lot of things when I was getting into buying a property. There was just so much I didn't know. Yeah. And I needed someone to ask these things. So I was asking, my dad, or just looking up on Google. But the big people that were helping me at the time was the real estate agent and the mortgage broker. And they're two people that it was so easy to go to them with questions. Yeah. Because they're on your side. They're trying to help you. Yes, the real estate agent's trying to sell you the property. So they're going to talk things up. But at the end of the day, they want to help first home buyers. They want to see a success story. And especially the mortgage broker. The mortgage broker is working for you. And so I went to them with the questions about how does first home buyer benefits work for off-the-plan properties, because I know there's a guarantee scheme, there's a grant scheme, and there's also the stamp duty exemption scheme. So because I haven't had to settle on the apartment yet, I haven't had to take out the mortgage, the 5% deposit will apply in the future. Yep. Given that we live in the apartment for 12 months, or majority of a year. Yep. So that's definitely the plan. Yep. The grant applies to newly built homes or renovated homes. Yep. I understand. So I will look into that more at the time of settlement. Yep. That didn't come up at the point of exchange.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, that's about $10,000, I think.
Yeah, which certainly will help if that's something we are eligible for. But the thing that we were eligible for at exchange is the stamp duty exemption. Now it's actually a little bit frustrating for me. I exchanged on the apartment on, I think, the 28th of June,
Yep.
And it rolled over into the new financial year. And on the 1st of July, they increased the threshold. So I had to pay a bit of stamp duty, but if I waited 2 days, I would have been completely exempt.
Yeah.
So that's something you can't really plan for. And maybe I could have done more research into it, but you live and you learn, and we're still happy with the outcome. So yeah, there was that stamp duty that we got partial exemption for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Did you use the one from Super as well? Because that is one that people don't really know about so much, that you can take money out of Super if you've salary sacrifice.
Yep. So, no, we didn't use the super, mostly because we haven't made additional contributions to it. I think you can only pull out additional, not your super guarantee. So, but that's certainly something. I've got a lot of friends that are doing that. They're dumping money into their super, paying less tax on it, and then being able to pull it out to
it's something that I suppose you've got to plan for over a period of time, but it's a very valuable proposition.
Yep.
What about yours?
Yeah, so for mine, I paid the 5% deposit, and that was just a huge enabling factor to how we could afford it. And then obviously no stamp duty, and
And we didn't get the grant because we weren't buying a new house.
Yes, that's right. But yeah, I think that was just huge, being able to afford that. And yeah, was there anything else to the first home buying?
I guess just another benefit of being a first home buyer is appealing to the real estate agents and the sellers.
Will had so much fun in inspections. He had this one line. What was it?
My wife and I, my fiance and I, we want to build a home in here. And
no, I was thinking.
I don't know if that works in Sydney.
Yeah, I don't even know if I should say this, but you were saying to them that, and of course we're looking to rent it out in future. If we ever need someone, you'd be the first.
That's
great to the agent.
Yeah, great.
saying, we're planning on going overseas at some point, and when we're renting it out, obviously you'll be
100%. Great tactic.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
So you gotta make friends.
Yeah, I do think that as well. It's appealing to that. You've got to.
Yeah, you gotta tap into your
tough market.
prudence.
Seem very old school. You went to your broker, your agent, asking for advice.
Yeah.
What about the online? There's a lot of online stuff now.
Yeah.
How do you cut through that noise?
I didn't. In hindsight, these days I'm using ChatGPT a lot.
Yeah.
That's
So
very helpful. But I'm getting an opinion from Dad, an opinion from the real estate agent, from the mortgage broker, ChatGPT, my mates, and then you've got to take all that. And at the end of the day, you've got to make a decision for yourself still. You can't rely on one person's advice. And so, it was really good to get a lot of input and a lot of conflicting input as well. At first, Mum and Dad actually were a little bit discouraging to Naomi trying to buy a house just before we got married. They said, don't stretch yourselves too thin. It seems like you're taking on unnecessary risk, especially if you want to move around. But and so that was very valuable in that it made me really sit back and go, is this realistic?
Yep.
Is this achievable? Am I doing something stupid? But I ran the numbers and talked to enough people and did enough research. I backed myself, and I backed Naomi as well.
Yeah, I think a part of my first home buying journey was borrowing capacity, and for me that was the biggest thing, was looking at how I could stretch that as much as I could to afford something reasonable. I mean, we were looking pretty much bottom of the market, an hour out of town, but we were how can I optimize what I have? And I think something I've really learned throughout the process is asking for things, the importance of advocating for yourself in terms of your paycheck, in terms of just your income, and advocating for pay rises if that's something that is in your future. So I was kind of looking at 6 to 12 months down the track, and I really just kind of
a pay rise.
Yes, a pay rise, and I asked questions what could I do to kind of get that sooner, knowing my timeline, and worked really hard with work to kind of get there in the right time frame. And I think for me that was really foreign, the idea of asking. that's not something I am comfortable with. But without that, I wouldn't have been able to really use my first homeowners. There wouldn't have been anything in the market. So I think really the importance of advocating for myself with my pay was something I learned throughout the process a lot. And just asking.
What's interesting as well is, and this would have come up in your forecasting, and this would be a rare situation as well, but you're getting a loan based on your single income.
Yes.
But you guys can have pulled together, and you can now, I'm assuming, I'm going to put words in your mouth, I'm assuming you can easily afford repayments as a dual income.
Well, we're paying it with just her income, essentially.
Oh, and you're living off yours, pretty much, or saving off yours, I should say.
Sure. Yeah,
So I think that's great foresight and planning as well, because you're not, and I appreciate your parents' perspective, Naomi, saying, oh, is this risky? Are you overextending? Well, you on your own are overextending potentially, but together you're able to do this. And I think that's beautiful. Any final question is, and there's been so much good gold in this, so I'm going to ask you to choose one thing, one piece of advice that you would give a couple starting out, and trying to get ahead, as you said, Will.
Yeah.
What's the one piece of advice? And you can have a different one.
Do we get one each?
You can get one each, of course, yeah.
I think I also want to, kind of extend on what Naomi was just speaking about in her journey of trying to boost her income for her borrowing power, because I do think that biggest struggles for first home buyers is the deposit and the borrowing power. And something that can really help those two things is boosting your primary income. And that's something you may have control over or very limited control over, but asking for a pay rise or asking for a promotion and or just asking, what do I need to be doing to get a pay rise or a promotion? If you can, by any means, increase your income, that's going to drastically improve your borrowing power. A mortgage broker will tell you that your borrowing power, the biggest driver of what that is your income. So if you can increase that, then what your options are expands, and your ability to save for your deposit becomes much, much more doable if you remain living within those same means. So I would say my advice would be advocate for yourself and future plan and set goals and reasonable ways to achieve them.
And I think for me, so the question was for other couples looking to get into the market. I think for me the biggest thing is work out what your priorities are, why you want a house. Is it somewhere you want to live and build a home? Is it somewhere you want to rent out or invest in? And once you have those priorities, you kind of work out how flexible you are with different elements of the house that you're buying too. And my biggest thing is just, be flexible and open to looking in different areas. It doesn't have to be the suburb you grew up in. Look at regional areas, look at rural areas if that's something you're interested in. Just be flexible, because I think that's a lot easier to get into the market away from the coast.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. It's setting goals together, right?
Yes.
And I would say, with a few extra years on you guys, goals will change.
Yeah.
All right. So understanding that and being able to go through that together, and I think starting early, so good.
Yeah.
Anything from you, Sam?
No, I would say the same. Like, look within what you can afford. So there's never going to be the right time to get into the market. And I think people put it off. But as a first home buyer, there's so many grants out there that you can utilize, especially with the deposit part. The borrowing capacity can be a challenge, but look within what you can afford and don't wait.
Thanks, guys. I haven't almost cried in a pod before. I just think your story is amazing. I really do, and I'm glad.
Really,
so thanks for getting these guys in.
It's been really fun. I've never been on a podcast.
Yeah, we'll have to get you back when you get back from Tanzania.
Yeah.
When you get back from Tanzania, maybe come back in and we'll see where you're at.
I would love to.
Yeah, hopefully in a good place. Not completely broke.
Guys, we have to sell everything. It was no, I'm sure it'll be awesome. But looking forward to chatting again and
Yeah,
hearing more
absolutely.
about your story. That's
Thanks
amazing.
so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
This is Jason He, the sexiest voice in property, here to tell you that the Property Now podcast offers opinions on Australian property news for informational and entertainment purposes only, and general in nature. It does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. It does not constitute professional advice. Always seek expert guidance before making any property-related decisions.